Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Welcome to Mission Evolution, where we share the latest discoveries that shape the evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. What if the key to unlocking human potential lies within the rhythms of the mind itself? Today's guest, Morry Zelcovitch, founder of MindTrainer PRO.com, is a pioneer in the science of brainwave entrainment, the art and technology of using sound frequencies to harmonize the mind, elevate awareness, and expand consciousness. Join us as we explore how brainwave technology can reduce stress, enhance creativity, and even help bridge the gap between science and spirituality. This is Mission Evolution, where science meets spirit. Morry, thank you so much for joining us on Mission Evolution.
It's my absolute pleasure to be here, Gwilda. Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. So, what first inspired you to look into brainwave entrainment?
Let's see. That's not hard to think about, actually. How to say it is a little harder. How about 40 years of wanting to be dead?
Oof.
That's kind of a soundbite for you. I basically was depressed and super depressed my entire life. Not that I'm just over 40 years now. Up until the point where I came up with the brainwave entrainment technologies and techniques that I now share with the world that I was using for myself to actually change the chemistry in my brain. I kind of found that, I was like most people, I would think, trying things to feel better
Hmm.
and not really succeeding. I tried drugs, I tried alcohol, I tried women. There were moments of joy with all of those, but for the most part, it was hell on earth, made things much worse.
Hmm.
And I wasn't being fair to the people I was with either. But of course, being depressed, I didn't care. I was selfish. I only cared about myself. Started realizing when those didn't work that I needed to find some other way. So I started seeing other kinds of doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, people who taught breathing techniques, EMDR, hypnosis, meditation, all the array of things that I could find. By the way, all of these things are fantastic. They just weren't good for me. And at that point, I decided, we're talking decades into my research at this point, I kind of thought, I need to understand what's going on, because at this point, I've tried to end my life 6 times that I can remember.
Goodness.
I probably blocked out others, but I kind of realized that if I truly wanted to die, once would have been enough. So when I found that I couldn't find a way to die, I had to find a way to live. And that's really what set me off on this whole discovery mission. Eventually, I came across a thing called the paper internet. Can you guess what I'm describing when I call something the paper internet?
No, I really can't.
Library. The library. So for those of you who don't know what a library is, Google it. You'll see what it is. It used to be a building with books. If you don't know what a book is, Google that too. So basically what happened was I started reading because I wanted to understand what was going on. So I was reading psychology books and journals, and I was reading sociology, quantum physics, neurobiology, neurochemistry. And the end result was I got this understanding that my mood, how I felt, was a direct result of chemical production in my brain. And it turns out that I wasn't far off. So what happens is we have thoughts. These thoughts produce brainwave activity. This brainwave activity is basically neuronal action. So your neurons, which make up your brain, start pulsing, but they pulse like a light switch going on and off, not like a heart. And depending on how many times they pulse per second and the location in the brain where they are, that dictates the kind of chemistry they release. And much like a recipe, if you have a really good recipe and you follow it, you can make something that tastes beautiful. If you don't follow it and you don't have all the ingredients, you can make something that tastes rather horrible. And that's kind of what I was doing. I was creating all this bad chemistry that was making my life taste like crap.
Mhm. Mhm.
When I
So,
realized, sorry, go ahead.
um, let's back up a little bit. What exactly is brainwave entrainment?
So I can tell everyone out there that there's an excellent chance that you've all experienced brainwave entrainment, whether you know what it means or not. So, brainwave entrainment is when we make the neurons, your brains, which pulse frequencies all the time. They're pulsing usually between 1 and 100, sometimes more times per second. What brainwave entrainment does is it allows us to kind of guide the brain into specific frequencies in a dominant way so that more cells create the exact kind of chemistry we're looking for. And that helps us to create a different effect.
It sounds like it could be misused if you're not careful, couldn't it?
I suppose it could. There was some stuff that I was experimenting with many years ago that I actually took the hard drive out of my computer and destroyed it because I didn't want anyone else to be able to recreate what I accidentally came up with because it made me feel like crap. For
Mm.
3 weeks, I felt like garbage. And I could have done something to change it, but I needed to know exactly how bad the effects were. So it took 3 weeks for me to normalize. It could be used like that, but in most cases, for it to be effective, it's at a comfortable volume. It's stereo headphones or bone conduction headphones, laying down with your eyes closed. So the possibility of using it for evilness is not all that probable because people could just stop listening.
Would they have a clue that this is not working well for me and I need to stop listening during the
Yes.
episode?
Yeah. It would feel uncomfortable. It could feel like I'm getting sick or sad or headache or agitated, these kinds of things. Because remember, we're affecting brain activity, and it's that activity that creates the chemistry, and it's the chemistry that creates your experience.
So basically, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Can
And
brainwave
that's
freq I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I just want to finish the thought. So what happens is, I explained that most people have experienced it already. So if you've ever listened to music that you like and you find yourself tapping your toes mindlessly or bopping your head back and forth mindlessly, that's a form of entrainment. So everybody's experienced it, and I apologize for interrupting.
Not a problem. So, can brainwave frequencies affect emotional states? And if so, how?
Well, once again, I'm going to be a bit of a parrot here and repeat myself. The chemistry that is produced creates the experience, or actually the ability to experience whatever it is that you want to experience. So, brainwave entrainment is used to help calm people from stressful situations. It's used to help people sleep better. There's studies all over the place. If you go to Google Scholar, or there's an app out there called Consensus. If you go to either of these places and you type in like brainwave entrainment and stress, brainwave entrainment and anxiety, brainwave entrainment and this or that or whatever, you'll likely find hundreds, if not thousands, of papers that have been published with people using some form of entrainment, tapping, drum beats, whatever, that show a positive or in some cases a detrimental effect to the psyche and to the psychology of the experiencer.
What makes your mind trainer program unique then?
So, well, first of all, my intention is unique. My intention is for people to help themselves. Unlike a lot of people, I don't think I'm a brilliant genius. That if you follow what I say, your life will be better. I believe you are your own guru, and all of my work is designed specifically to activate that weapon that everybody has, their brain, to their own benefit. Because again, you are your own guru. I don't really understand. I mean, maybe this is from 40 years of understanding and researching, but I don't understand how someone who doesn't know me can come up with a system that's going to help me. I tried that route for 40, 45 years. It didn't work. And I think that might be a reason why a lot of people buy a lot of products and they don't work. The secret, and again, I'm not saying these aren't good systems, but the secret here, and I'll give everyone the secret for free, is that remember that everybody, even the big names, can only create a product based on their own experience. They're not you. They have different parents, different upbringing, different beliefs. All these things are different. So if something I say or someone else says resonates with you, before you take action on it, I would suggest you reinterpret it, reimagine it, make it your own. And if you still resonate with it, that's when you act on it. I believe that will give you the best chance of success.
So no more cookie cutter.
No more cookie cutter.
How do you measure changes in the brain?
Well, there's a couple of ways that I do it. When I'm doing deep research on myself, I hook myself up to an electroencephalogram, which measures brainwave activity. I could go even further and get blood work done and check out different chemistries in my body before and after. But really, the best way I have found is just by doing it and letting people do it, and then they report back what they experience. The thing is, even Tylenol, which is very popular for muscle aches and headaches, I believe with the FDA at the time, it took 3 studies that proved above placebo to be able to make a medical claim. I believe it took them 12 studies to get 3 that showed above placebo. So I'm not a giant fan of research papers. I mean, there have been a couple done on my work, and those I'm a fan of because they talk about how great they are. But in reality, I think it's the personal experience of the user that matters more than scientific research. The research is good to establish safety and maybe protocols of usage, but ultimately it's your personal experience that matters more than it matters if a mouse reacted nicely or if somebody else in Utah, and you're in Florida, their experience is never going to be the same as yours for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
Can entrainment improve focus and creativity?
It does for me. That's some of the main things that it can help with is focus and creativity. A lot of business people use it to help them figure their way out of issues and problems. Part of the reason why we have problems with focus and creativity is we get in the way of ourselves. So we start thinking too much. We start questioning ourselves too much. It's important to be able to turn off one part of the brain and activate another part of the brain when these circumstances come up, so we have a better chance of accomplishing our task. Here's an example. Athletes who are particularly good at what they do will continually tell people, well, I don't really think about it. I just do it. They're not getting in their own way. They're in, what's called flow or the zone. This is what we try to do with entrainment when it's properly engineered. We try to put you into that zone state so that stuff just happens. It's not like you even know how it's happening, but it's not important. It's like driving a car. I don't need to know how to fix a car because there's mechanics I can call. I just have to know how to drive the car. That's really all I need to know.
Well, it's time for us to take a station break. Morry and I will return very shortly, so don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Does sound entrain the brain? With us this hour discussing brainwave entrainment is Morry Zelcovitch. His website, MindTrainer-pro.com. Morry, does sound influence consciousness?
Not at all. Surprised? Considering I create audio systems primarily, are you surprised to hear that I would tell you that sound does not affect anything? Here's why. There's no such thing as sound. It doesn't exist. It's a hallucination. You're not even hearing me now. If you put your hand on your neck when you talk, you will feel vibration. Sound in its earliest stages is nothing more than vibratory energy. Your computer speaker, your phone speaker, your television, however you're watching this now and listening to it, is creating vibratory patterns. If you put your hand in front of the speaker of what you're listening to, you will feel the vibration as I speak. Your brain interprets that noise, that energy, that vibration, and it creates the illusion of sound. It literally translates the vibration into emotion, into intellectual, into any form that is necessary for it to make sense for you. So that old line, if a tree, and you can impress people at parties with this now, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a noise? Well, now you know the answer is no. If a tree falls in the forest and someone is there to hear it, does it make a noise? The answer is still no. It makes vibration. And if something is there to interpret that vibration, that gets translated by the listener into something we call sound.
That opens up a whole new bucket of worms about our senses versus everything is frequency, doesn't it? So,
Sure.
is there a link between brainwaves and spirituality?
So spirituality is an interesting term because I think there's as many people on the planet Earth as there are definitions for the term spirituality. Thought, to me, as a scientist, thought is the root of spirituality. People interpret things as spiritual or not spiritual or good or bad or indifferent. So it depends on the person, really. It's not a general, one size fits all kind of question. That being said, it affects brainwave activity, which affects chemistry. Everyone's going to know that inside out by the end of this. And that influences how we think. You could have 3 people on an airplane going up and they're all going to parachute. And one of them, when they're at, is can't wait for the airplane to hit altitude so they can jump. They are so excited. The other person just got a phone call from the office, can't wait to land. He's totally lost the entire love of jumping because a major problem just occurred at the office. And then the third one is taking off the parachute because they decided, you know what? I looked out the window. That's way too high to be jumping out of an airplane. I'm going to ride the airplane down. Thank you very much. Exactly the same stimulus. 3 completely different responses. So your question is kind of the same line. It really depends on the individual, how they define spirituality, and then how it affects them. Because how you think and your expectations can have a lot to do with how you perceive and how you experience brainwave entrainment, just like it influences how you experience your life.
So, given that, are you saying that the results of your system are going to vary individual to individual drastically?
It could be drastic, yeah. I have series of testimonials from clients that you would think are from, say, 10 different products, and they're from the same product. Because the thing is, whatever I'm doing, it's targeting your brain, and your brain has its own coding, its own programming, its own experience, its own way of interpreting things. Uh, for me, quantum physics at the most basic level says nothing exists until it's observed. Well, us humans don't just see something, we define it, we give it meaning. So that means that you and I, Gwilda, could be looking at the same thing. We could be looking at a microphone, for instance, if we were in the same room and we're looking at the same microphone. But you would see it differently than I see it. You would describe it differently than I describe it. Does that mean that there's actually 2 microphones there, even though we both only see one? I would answer that question, yes. It means there's 2 microphones there because your definition has created a definition, meaning in your universe, mine in my universe. Words mean different things to you that they do to me. There's so many differences. I think we're fooled into thinking we all coexist in the same universe because we see each other and we walk and it's, excuse me, I'm in your way, I am sorry. So we think we're in the same universe. What I believe is going on is that we're actually in different universes that occasionally rub up against each other. So right now, your universe and my universe is rubbing up against each other. In a few hours, they won't be anymore. Your life will go on. I'll be relatively unaware of what's going on in your life. My life will go on. You'll be relatively unaware of what's going on in my life. Since I've adopted this kind of a way of thinking, I can tell you that I don't judge anymore. I don't wait for people to stop talking so I can tell them how wrong they are about certain things. My life has become much calmer, much more sedate, much happier, because now I understand that everybody sees everything in terms of their own life and experience, their own universe. I see things in terms of my life experience, my own universe. So that means they're always right and I'm never wrong.
So with all this variance, how can you judge results with your system?
So, with all the variability that's involved from a psychoactive standpoint, from a physiological standpoint, we tend to react very similarly. We may interpret those reactions and the feelings and the sensations we get differently, but the actual biological, physiological results are very, very similar. So, certain vibrational patterns will elicit certain responses in anybody's brain. How that gets interpreted, how that gets translated, how that is given meaning is up to the individual. That's where it branches off. You could look at it this way: we're all kind of like part of the trunk of a tree, and then our psychology is the branches. So each one of us has our own branch where we branch off onto this or branch off onto that. But we all kind of start from the same beginning.
Can your system reduce stress and anxiety?
I'm not allowed to make medical claims, but I can tell you that there is a ton of people out there who've written me testimonials to that effect. So yeah, I would say so. And in my own life, I can tell you that as well.
How does that work if it affects everybody differently? Is there a particular frequency or entrainment that promotes a reduction in stress and anxiety?
There are specific frequencies that people can use. I have different types of technology, some of which incorporate vocalizations. And that's one way to guide the energy that is created and brought up using these types of recordings. There's different techniques. There's meditative techniques. There's hypnotic techniques. There's something I call triliminal techniques. All of these different techniques help to subtly influence the mind into certain thought patterns. But ultimately, everything is designed to help people to help themselves. So we do have certain commonalities. There are certain things, like, for instance, I'm talking a lot. Sorry about that. So a lot of people would say, oh, this guy's in beta for sure. First of all, we're in all brainwave states at the same time. Different regions of our brain are firing at different states all the time. When I am more active like this, thought wise, my brainwave patterns tend to be slower. The last time I was measured, I was dominant in delta frequencies. I wasn't sleeping. And people talk about delta being the sleep frequency. Well, delta is a specific frequency within sleep, and it's very important. But actually, alpha, theta, even beta sometimes are features of your sleep cycle. So
So
there's a
does
lot of misinformation
sorry.
out there.
Does the intention of the individual when they start using your system, does that affect where it works for them?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I would say the answer is 100% yes. As a matter of fact, people who want to prove my work doesn't work can easily do so experientially by simply trying my stuff and going, well, nothing happened for me. Because it's very easy to fight off the effects. And if you go in with the intention that you want to prove it's woo woo, that'll happen because that's your intention. If you have as an intention you're going to be calm and cool and collected, you're more likely to be calm, cool, and collected. If you go in with the intention to be creative or problem solving, you're more likely to be creative and problem solving. And it doesn't matter the frequency that you're being entrained to, even though there might be some frequencies that tend to be more dominant when most people are problem solving, or when most people are creative, or most people are being active.
So do you change the frequencies based on the goal?
I change the frequencies. A lot of my recording systems don't just deal with one frequency. So they deal with multiple frequencies. And the reason for that is that ultimately it's your brain that does all the heavy lifting. My work is just kind of making the bed for you. You still have to get in and go to sleep.
Speaking of
So
sleep,
yeah, yeah. Speaking of sleep,
speaking of sleep, how does the quality of sleep, how is that impacted by your system?
well, okay. So I do have programs specifically for sleep. I will tell you my experience. I lost both my parents a couple of years ago.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And if I get a little choked up, just so you'll know, but what happened was, for years, my brother and I took turns going to their house to help take care of them. And through that time, I neglected my business quite a bit. Obviously, half of my life was spent there. I wasn't able to work. I had the stress of watching them dwindle away. I had the stress of my business having some problems at the time. Thankfully, not anymore. I had tons of stress, so much so that I was actually yelling. You can imagine with my voice, if you were lying next to me and it was the middle of the night and I yelled like really loudly, you might have a heart attack. Well, my wife almost had heart attacks from me yelling. I was even acting out. So normally in sleep, it's healthy to have dreams, even nightmares sometimes. But we have something called sleep paralysis that stops us from acting out and speaking out. I had no sleep paralysis going on at all. I was punching the air. I actually punched my wife a couple of times. When she told me that, I said, this is not acceptable. I was like this close to getting an air bed and sleeping in the basement. So just so I could protect her. I designed a sleep recording for myself. When I sleep now, I talk in my sleep a little bit, but it's calm. I don't act out at all. I sleep much better. So that's my experience. And again, I have systems designed to help people do that. But again, it's to help people to do that. It's not making a claim that it does that.
So you're setting up the optimum frequency for a particular issue, but it's up to the individual's intention to use that for whatever they're going to?
Yeah, and also to use it consistently. Think of it like going to a health club. How many people buy a health club membership and never use it? Or they go once a month or whatever. They feel it's enough to own a membership. They don't actually have to go. It's the same thing with brainwave entrainment. I look at the brain like a muscle. So if we use it regularly and consistently, it's more likely to be strong. And the other thing is, if you go to a health club and let's say you lift weights and you run, then that doesn't mean after a year you're just going to be able to lift more weight and run more. It means anything those muscle groups can do, they will also be able to do better, like carrying groceries, like going for walks, like
Well, we're
hiking, like
we're
gross.
going to have to take another station break. Maury and
Sorry.
I will be no problem. Maury and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So please stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. What if I want to heal? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing brain enhancement is Morry Zelcovitch. His website, mindtrainer-pro.com. Maury, what role does frequency play in healing?
Well, there's a guy that some of you may have heard of by the name of Nikola Tesla. And he proposed that at some point, all healing will be vibrationally based. There's lots of theories out there that says that illness is nothing more than misaligned vibratory patterns coming from cell groups. And if you can entrain those cells back into a healthy, functional state, the illness will go away. You can kind of look at, and again, I'm just quoting Tesla here, but you can look at it this way. Let's say you have a stagnant pond. There's a pretty good chance you're going to have mosquitoes because that's an ideal spot for mosquitoes to breed. Now I take that pond and at the north end, I cut an opening and the south end, I cut an opening and I lead it to a river and the river is now pouring water through and the water's moving. Well, the mosquitoes will just go away because they can't live in that area anymore because the water's moving. It's not stagnant anymore. So that's the idea behind vibrational healing, is that you're literally creating a state, not where you're actually curing a disease or a condition, but where you're creating a situation or a state where that condition can no longer exist. That's kind of what it comes down to. Now, on a more scientific, less theoretical way of thinking of it, you could look at it this way. We are human beings and we are conscious beings. So that means we're aware of what's happening around us. If we have an intention, that intention doesn't bring magic, but it brings activity. It brings action. We start reading more books. We make phone calls. We talk to more people. Certain things start happening in our lives that we don't realize had happened before or would have happened before. If you look, and to go a little more into the real world, if you kind of look at the literature on meditation, There's lots of scientific literature that says people who meditate tend to have better outcomes from illness and surgery. They tend to recover faster. This is not me making a medical claim. Go look it up. There's tons of papers out there that say this. The thing about it is, I've got a doctor, Dr. Dale Bredesen, if anyone knows who he might be. He's one of the top Alzheimer's researchers. He called my work meditation on steroids. So you can kind of make the connection if you'd like to from there. I couldn't meditate when I was depressed. I would keep judging myself and asking myself, is this working? Am I supposed to feel this way? Am I feeling anything? This kind of gets you to meditate without any need, any lessons, any writing, any studying, any training. So I would agree with him that it's meditation on steroids without the negative effects of steroids, of course.
So, how do you differentiate science from pseudoscience?
How do you define pseudoscience?
Well, that's always the question, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really the question. Because if you're really saying, how do you differentiate between science and woo-woo? We're using pseudoscience as a more intellectual way of saying woo-woo?
I wouldn't know. They have usually when people are talking about pseudoscience, they're trying to invalidate something that
Right.
hasn't been scientifically proven.
So brainwave entrainment is proven. It's all over the place. I told you, you'd find hundreds of thousands of papers talking about frequency, talking about pulse tones, talking about binaural beats, talking about all these types of things. Uh, there's tons of research on this. The problem is people don't think to look it up. If they haven't heard about it, if their doctor doesn't know anything about it, they tend to not believe in it. And that's sad because there's a lot of things out there that are relatively innocuous. They don't really, there's not really a big downside to a lot of things, side effects, that kind of thing, that might be able to help them to live a more fulfilled life if they'd only open their eyes and open their ears and do a little research. And I'm not promoting my stuff. I'm saying there's lots of stuff out there. So open your minds, open your eyes, open the possibilities. Shakespeare said something like, there's more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. And that basically says that just because you don't see things doesn't mean they don't exist. There's theories, quantum theories now that say there's 8 different levels of awareness, not 3, like not depth, height, these things. There's 8. I believe it's an infinite number of dimensions, actually, not 3. I believe it's infinite. So when you think of it that way, now look around you in the room and take note of what you're seeing and what you're observing. And then imagine all the things that are filling up all this, what looks like empty space to you, but it isn't empty. You open yourself up to so much potential and so many possibilities when you start thinking that way, instead of just accepting everything for what you think it is, or what you've been told it is, or what you've been taught it is by your teachers and your parents and whoever else might have influence over how you feel or how you think.
What results do your users commonly report?
I have testimonials for all kinds of things. I have a testimonial from a woman who had a stroke and credits my work to bringing her back from the stroke. I have a testimonial from a family in the UK. One of their sons, I think he was in his 20s, autistic, non-responsive. Then they have a younger son as well. And they were in tears telling me how their kid asked daddy to read him a book. Never did that before.
Hmm. And that's after
All over.
experiencing
Better
your.
sleep, less stress, more creativity, losing weight, quitting bad habits, doing more exercise, cleaning their attic. I mean, again, your brain is the real powerhouse here, right? My work is just stimulating it. You can kind of look at it this way. Let's speak English for a moment for the people out there who are tired and want to lie down from all this sciencey talk. So you buy a house, you live in it for 15 years. It came with a beautiful wall unit, absolutely gorgeous wall unit, and you kept it there because you liked it. And 20 years later, you decide, you know what, I'm redecorating, time to get rid of this wall unit. So you move the wall unit and there's a door behind it. That's what brainwave entrainment does. It moves something that's in the way and it lets you see something that you never saw before.
Is the brain capable of rewiring itself permanently? I mean, can these effects be permanent?
I think with regular use, you can make long lasting changes, but like exercise, it's a matter of doing the right things over long periods of time. Just like doing wrong things over the long period of time will cause problems. It kind of goes both ways. The thing about the brain is, however much we know or think we know, because I call it understanding, I don't really know anything. I just have what I call a current understanding. So I believe we know less about the brain than we know about our planet, than we know about the ocean, than we know about we just scratch the surface, the cortical layer, if you will, of the brain. We don't know anything about the brain. We have theories, we have probabilities, we have things that look like they make sense, so we accept them. But then we develop a new tool, we develop a new way to measure something or to see something, and all of a sudden, our beliefs change, our facts change, making them not facts in the first place. So some questions don't have answers, not because I don't know the answer, but because I believe I don't think anybody knows the answer.
Can entrainment help? I mean, we've talked about this, but can entrainment help permanently overcome trauma and addiction, or does it just kind of refocus you temporarily?
That again is making a claim, and I hesitate to do that. I'll go back to my muscle description of the brain, saying that if you exercise that muscle, it's going to keep it strong. If you stop exercising, you run a risk. It's kind of like I used to smoke cigarettes, I used to smoke marijuana. So I haven't smoked in who knows how long. I don't remember how long. I was such a different person back then. But if I were to go back and have a cigarette now or a joint now, I'd probably go weeks or months without another one. But then I'd have another one, thinking, well, I had one, it's not a big deal. And before you knew it, I'd be addicted again. So I think these changes are not something like a magic bullet that just changes something and that's it, it's changed now. I think it helps you to inspire change, but you have to work to keep that change going. I don't have enough, faith in myself that if I stopped using my entrainment daily or at least 4 or 5 times a week, that couldn't honestly tell you I would be confident that my depression wouldn't come back after time. It might. But I mean, I get such pleasure out of listening. Why would I stop anyway?
So, how does your technology align with neuroscience research?
Well, it aligns rather well with neuroscience research. There are those who actually include it, like I was mentioning Dr. Bredesen, the Alzheimer's guy. Uh, but it depends on the mind. It depends on the scientist. It depends on their philosophies and their beliefs. Doctors and scientists are an interesting breed because if I go up to them with a problem and I go up to a gastrointestinologist, they're going to come up with a problem with my gut that caused it. A neuroscientist or doctor may come up with a neurology based solution. Hematologist may be something to do with my blood. So everybody tends to kind of pigeonhole whatever they think and however they think within their own guidelines, within their own personal restraints or medical restraints or belief systems or whatever. So it's another question that's very difficult to answer because one neuroscientist will give you one answer, another one will tell you brainwave entrainment is useless. Others will tell you it shows promise, but we don't know for sure. It's not a pseudoscience. It's not fake. There's lots of research out there showing that it has effect, showing that it has positive effect. But again, much like the FDA with Tylenol, I think what tells a story more is by being able to be in a situation where you can try something and make up your own mind. It's I tell my clients sometimes, I say, that's a fantastic question, but you're asking the wrong person. You should be asking the person you see in the mirror every morning when you brush your teeth. Because ultimately, again, you are your own guru. You're the only person who truly has the answers. I could have a pill that I designed. You're going to live to be 150. You're going to be totally mobile the whole time. You're going to be totally alert and awake and having fun. And when it's time to go, you're going to smile and go, hey, everybody, I had a fun time. See you in whatever comes next. But you still have to take the pill. If you don't take the pill, it's not going to help you. That means that you're the one responsible for your own happiness. That's not a bad thing. That's a wonderful thing, because if you're responsible, that means you have power. If you have power, you can make the right decisions that get you to where you want to go. And that's what I love about this business, because it's not me telling you what to do. It's me helping you develop a muscle that will help you to help yourself.
Which takes us back to your individual intent, doesn't it?
That is true.
hmm So it's a pretty flexible format, apparently.
It's incredibly flexible. Different people will get different results because they have different brains and different needs. It's flexible because it gives results usually beyond what is intended. I have systems that have various purposes, but I have found in the testimonials that people who use them for that purpose tend to get more than they bargained for.
Well, we're going to bargain for another station break. Please stay with us, as next, Morry and I will explore brainwaves and manifestation. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Can I get help with manifesting? This is
Oh,
Mission
yeah.
Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Morry Zelcovitch. His website, mindtrainer-pro.com. And now, Morry, there's the question. Can you help me with manifestation? And if so, how?
You can help yourself with manifestation using brainwave entrainment to open the energy in you towards manifestation. So there's actually frequencies. See, one of the ways I do my work is I find people who are successful at whatever it is I want to help people with. And then I look for research in what kind of people, how do they live? What do they do? What are their habits? All these kinds of things. And then I figure out the dominant brainwave patterns that they're likely experiencing when they are experiencing these peak performance states. And then I create systems that train the user's brain to achieve those same states through the frequency following response. The ba 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 ba, and then the brain starts following the similar frequency. Then I incorporate spoken word aspects that help guide people to solutions that they find for themselves. So manifestation, and it's interesting because I just wrote an article. I don't have it published yet, but I wrote an article about how your thought patterns influence your existence. So people, for instance, here's something that's interesting. I was working on a deal with a company for a long time, and it seemed to never get any traction, but they were very interested. I had been following political news a lot. What's going on in the Canada and the United States and in Europe and in the East and everything. And because I thought, I should know what's going on in the world around me. I thought it would help me prepare. I could maybe come up with some products to help people with the stress and anxiety that they're experiencing. Well, it turns out I was exposing myself to stress and anxiety. So I stopped doing it, like cold turkey, just stopped. YouTube is this close to not giving me any references to politics anymore. As you know, the algorithms on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, whatever, if you type in a word, Donald Trump as an example, you will start getting tons of stuff about Donald Trump. If you do it about Ukraine, you'll get tons of stuff about Ukraine. So what I did was, this was occupying my thoughts. It was getting in the way of my intention. So I cut everything out. Within 3 weeks, it came through. Is that a coincidence? No way. You have to live my life. You had to have had the experience to be able to tell. Magic, most people call it magic or a miracle, but magic or a miracle is really just science that hasn't been explained yet. That's all. It's like the other dimensions that we don't see, but are there anyway. We don't see oxygen. We breathe it, though, all the time. We don't see our heart beating, but our heart is beating all the time. So we have evidence that these things exist. Why not expand that to more things exist? We may not even be perceiving them. So look around you. You see your life isn't quite what you want it to be. You're a little depressed, maybe. You're not earning money enough. You're living paycheck to paycheck, if you're lucky. You don't know where your rent's coming from. All these thoughts manifest that kind of a destiny, because that's your, they say your subconscious or your conscious mind or your mind, period, doesn't judge what you do or think. It just gives you what you think. So it turns out that when we think bad things, we have intense emotion usually behind those bad things too. So what I tend to do is I reverse engineer. I'm not that bright. So what I do is I reverse engineer things that already exist. So if we have something that brings crap into your life and it does it, like legitimately all the time for so many people, that is a pretty effective technique you have there. But for some reason, people don't think, huh, that's a really effective technique. What if I change the content? What if I take it from bad and I turn it into something good? The same technique should then bring good results, because with bad thinking, it brings bad results. It makes logical sense that with good thinking, it would bring good results. So that's where the brainwave entrainment comes in. It alters the chemistry subtly so that it alters your perception of and your experience around you. So you start seeing things differently. Well, took myself away from all that political crap. And I feel if I need to know something, I'll know. Something will happen. Someone will tell me if I need to know something. And since then, so many things are coming to a head. And even things that some people might consider bad are actually good. And again, that's a matter of intention. That's a matter of manifestation. If I feel pain in my knee, is that a bad thing? Like, Gwilda, if you felt pain in your knee after this conversation, and please don't, because then you'll blame me. But if you did, would you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, the way I look at that sort of thing is it's a nice message for me to pay attention to something, which is a good thing.
There you go. That's exactly how you should look at it. But most people would go, why me? I have to go for a walk now. I have to do this. I have to do that. Usually these things are indications. You misstep going up an escalator or stairs, or you bump into something because you're staring at your phone or whatever, or you almost get into an accident because you were sending a text and you just almost hit a car, but you stopped. These are all messages. These are all good things. Pain is a good thing, believe it or not. Pain tells you something's amiss and you need to think, you need to do something about it. What if you broke your leg or you broke your arm and it didn't hurt? You may not go to a hospital. You may not get it treated. Maybe you never walk again as a result of that. Maybe you get an infection. Maybe you die from that infection. But the pain saved your life. Like you said,
Yes.
it was a good thing.
I understand that, there are people that don't live very long because they're born without pain receptors. So I get your point there. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about heredity of these patterns. We come into a family, and of course it's nature nurture question, right? But do we inherit some of these things? And if we do, these brain waves, these ways of thinking, and if we do, can your method shift that?
Well, there would be, it would be reasonable to assume that there could be a genetic predisposition to certain kinds of conditions, certain brain anomalies, neurochemical balances that are passed on genetically. That being said, there's still a process, there's still a methodology, there's still a rhyme and a reason as to why neurons behave the way they do, what neurochemistry is supposed to do. I believe that you can tweak it, just like going, you're driving your car and the engine's rough and it idles and it goes back and forth. You go take it, get it a tune up, and all of a sudden it comes out nice and quiet and smooth and it's running more efficiently. I believe that's possible for us too. Uh, is it something that I can guarantee you? No, I don't think I can guarantee anything. There's too many factors that depend on the success of anything. Look, if someone's a diabetic and they're told they're a diabetic and they're given insulin injections and they say, here's how to inject the insulin. And all they do is eat chocolate bars and cake all the time. Is the insulin going to help? Maybe a little at the beginning. What blows me away is on television, there's always these commercials for antacids. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it shows people eating usually, some kind of spicy food. And then it shows them in a serious discomfort. And then it shows them popping a pill or having a drink of something, and they feel great and they're eating the crap again. So why aren't they smart enough to understand that your body is telling you this isn't good for you? That's why you're getting heartburn. You're not getting heartburn just because, not for fun. You're getting it because your body is telling you this food isn't good for you. Don't eat it anymore. That's why you get heartburn. In the wild, animals eat a berry off a tree and get sick. They don't eat that berry ever again. Humans invent something to cover up the symptom.
How can listeners start using the mind trainer effectively?
Well, the easiest way to listen, and again, there's nothing to study, there's nothing to read, there's nothing really to do other than to put on an ordinary pair of stereo headphones or bone conduction headphones and lay back for about half an hour, hit play. You can even fall asleep. It doesn't make any difference at all whether you sleep, whether you're awake. That's it. Lie down, sit with head support. I've got head support on this chair here. I could just lean back, close my eyes, listen to the sounds, listen to my voice, whatever is going on in the recording. I don't even have to listen to it. I don't have to pay attention to it. I can
Does
just
setting
let it happen.
is setting your intention before you do that important for the effect?
I would say it would be very helpful. Is it important? I don't think so. I think the brain knows what it needs. And if you just go in with the intention that it's going to do whatever it needs to do, that's enough. You don't need to sit there repeating the intention over and over and over again. To be honest with you, it's my personal belief that hitting play, lying down, saying, my intention for this session is to relax. That's it. And then let my mind do whatever it wants to do. If it goes empty, it goes empty. If it has millions of thoughts flying through it, it has millions of thoughts flying through it. I've always had a problem with people who used to teach me meditation because they always said, Morry, when it's time for you to meditate, if thoughts come into your mind, tell yourself, I respect you, but this is my quiet meditation time. I will deal with you later. I'll think about you later. But now this is my meditation time. I have a real problem with that because if you're meditating properly in my world, at least in my universe, if a thought comes to you, that's because you're meditating and it came to you. Don't push it away. Don't ignore it. Don't try to empty your mind. That's my view. My view is do whatever feels right. If the thought comes by like a flicker of an image and it disappears, great. If it comes by and it inspires you to think about it, great. If nothing comes by, great. If anything happens, do whatever you're inspired to do at that moment, great. But don't follow a pattern that says empty your mind, empty your mind, empty your mind. That's
So
just my thought.
it's about that time in the program when I get to ask you, Maury, what is your mission?
So I don't have kids. My mission is to leave a tool behind that can help others to help themselves.
So
That's really what my mission is.
what do you see as the future of mind technology? How do you see it evolving?
We are mind. Our bodies are mechanical shells that mobilize us. The future of mind technology is the future of the mind itself. It's just like AI. AI is really useful if it's paired with HI, human intelligence. If it's just used as a crutch or as a replacement for thinking, we're all going to turn into mental blobs.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. Maury, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom. And thank all of you for joining us on Mission Evolution. Our guest this hour has been Morry Zelcovitch. He's the creator of Mind Trainer and a leading voice in the field of brainwave entrainment. You can learn more about his groundbreaking work at mindtrainer-pro.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. Until next time, remember, evolution is not merely a destination, it's a journey of awakening. Please be sure to join us right here again as this mission will continue, bringing information, resources, and support to our rapidly evolving world.